Welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I'm Adam, and holy shit, I am tired. It's Friday, which means another episode where I've been up for, at this point, was at 9 o'clock, so I got up at 4 o'clock, 4:30 this morning, so, that's a lot of math. 4 and 6 is 10, then 2 is 8, 8 and 9, that's, holy fuck, 17, 17 and a half hours, 16 and a half hours, so you get the picture. I've been up for a long time, I'm tired, and I made the great idea that what better way to end a long, arduous day. Let me go see a Michael Moore documentary. So, here we're going to talk about Farenheit 11/9, which is a documentary about Trump getting elected president. I'm not going to get political about this. I'm going to talk about why Michael Moore is probably the most obnoxious documentary filmmaker on the planet. That's what we're going to talk about today. Now, before we get into it, I'm going to answer this question now before I get asked about it later. Why did I see this but not Death of a Nation? Number one, if I'm going to see a documentary, I want it to be at least somewhat factually accurate. And I'm not going to sit here and fact check Michael Moore because, let me be honest, I only have 3 hours of time to do a podcast on Spreaker before it cuts me off, and we're going to need way more than that for a 2.5 hour documentary, which, by the way, let me tell you, this thing clocks in just under Infinity War's runtime, and I feel like Infinity War was a much better use and way more informative use of my time than this was. Now, why didn't I do Death of a Nation? Death of a Nation, when I read the description, had a fundamental flaw, and it is factually incorrect in the synopsis of the fucking documentary. So I wasn't going to go and put myself in a position to get pissed off and then go and review it. It would have been a waste of my time, and really, who needs the aggravation of putting themselves in a situation to get pissed off? Because it's like, it said, which was the party of slavery, the Democrats. It's like, yeah, but you're forgetting that they switched and all that. Okay, whatever. Let me talk about how the problems I have with this documentary. Fundamentally, this documentary doesn't give much factual information. It's a lot of appeal to your pathos, a lot of appeal to emotion, showing footage from the Parkland shooting that was gathered from Snapchat of various students, showing Trump talk over video of Hitler. Things like that are all designed to elicit emotion out of you. And let me be honest with you, if you're going to see a Michael Moore documentary, you tend to already align with it, agree with what he's saying. He's not trying to win anyone over, I don't think. It's just him illustrating his view of what caused the situation we're in now. It gets pretty, I do commend him, though. One of the things I do commend him for is the fact that, the Yankees are winning. I do commend him for the fact that he did manage to include the Helsinki summit, but he didn't go deep into that. And I'm not commending him for including it because it shows, his political viewpoints. We know he's very left-leaning to begin with. I'm commending him for it because that happened in July. It is now September. The movie came out last week, so it was a very quick turnaround to add that in. Granted, it's a small section where he addresses it briefly, and then, we move on with our day. There's a lot of ground to cover, but not really that much. It seems like he had a bunch of ideas for a bunch of different documentaries, and was like, fuck it, we'll make it all into one. And one of his producers was like, hey, should we do it in a series of, VGNet shorts? And he's like, fuck no, we'll just mishmash them together and hope for the best. Which is kind of what happens here. You end up where it's like, it sounds like having an argument with a person who, keeps having other ideas and then keeps jumping around between them with no real rhyme or reason. And it kind of makes sense, but nothing is really connected in a narrative way or in a logical way. It just all kind of just is there. There's no chronological order to it. There's no timeline. And there's several points in the movie where you're sitting there and you're like, oh, good, it's finally ending, this fucking nightmare. And then it's like, and then he kind of storms back into the room, and another thing, and then it continues. There is, think I'm getting the order right, where it's he's talking about everything that happens and everything that's going on with Trump. And then he talks about Gwen Stefani and how Gwen Stefani caused Trump to be where he is today. And then he talks about other things, and then it ends up going and talking about the next generation of Democrats and how we have to really move past the Schumers, the Chuck Schumers, the Nancy Pelosi's, and the old guard of sorts of the Democratic Party, and how if we're going to move forward as a country, we need to get rid of the old and in with the new. So he starts talking about the next group of Democrats. I think her name was Tlaib. The first Muslim senator or member of Congress, Ocasio-Cortez from Queens, they talk about, or she's from the Bronx, but she's running in Queens, and how this new breed of Democrats going to come around and kind of push the party in the right direction to actually make real change. And then it goes back to Parkland, and it's like, okay, you had your call to action, and it was a good call to action. It's like, we need to get this going. That should have been the ending point of the movie, or you should have rearranged the movie where that's the ending. And then it goes back to Parkland. And that high school got shot up back in, I think it was January. Which, okay, we can address school shootings too, I guess, is what we're going to next. And then it's like, alright, great. So then it goes on and it shows the change that the kids are making and all of that. And then it's like, okay, and now we have another natural ending point to this movie where it's like, we're going to show, look, even these kids can make change, and here's an example of the change they've made in the world, and great, a nice, happy ending to this documentary. And then it goes, again, we have another, it becomes very Lord of the Rings-esque, except instead of it being like a few minutes long, each of these little endings, they're like 20 to 25 minutes long, and you're just like, holy fuck, just move it along. Like, it's just like, it's not even like it's emotionally taxing to watch, and there are he does show some footage that did get me emotionally. Like, he showed Emma Gonzalez talking about the people that died and, that kind of stuff. But that didn't, move, I get what you're trying to do. Move it along, let's go. And then it gets to the next part, which is comparing him to Hitler, which, of course, you knew was going to happen when you went into the documentary, and if you didn't expect it, I don't know where the hell you've been for the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, however fucking long. Trump's been talking politics. The Hitler comparison's been around forever, and people have been comparing politicians to Hitler since Hitler, so I don't understand if anyone was surprised here that this is going to happen. So then there's that. And then it's like, we have to try, and one of the points that he brings up here is that fear-mongering was used then, is being used now. And then he goes right into fear-mongering about Trump. And I'm not for Trump, I'm anti-Trump, he's a giant orange jackass. But if you're making an argument, and then you say that something he does is wrong, and then you immediately go and do it too, with outlandish hyperbole, it's going to, it kind of diminishes your point a little bit. Not to say that's not saying that Trump doesn't have fascist, authoritarian qualities, but when you start fear-mongering and going, the next step's concentration camps, which is not explicitly stated, but when you're showing footage of concentration camps over audio of Trump speaking, was that what it was? I don't remember. It was some audio from the modern day showing over footage of concentration camps. It's meant to create a moral equivalency, and the moral equivalency of what's going on is more with the internment camps during World War II, because there's not like death squads and people killing everyone, it's just interning them, which isn't good, but it's not as bad as mass murder. I think that's a pretty fundamental agreement that everyone can have, is that, yeah, separating kids from their parents is bad, but it's not, at least we're not putting them down at the same time, which shouldn't be the line, but unfortunately that's what we've become at this point, where the line is that we're not killing children, or just killing their parents. But anyway, so then that all happens, and then, okay, and now the movie's gonna end. And then they start talking about the Hawaii incident, which was an accident where someone accidentally hit something and there was a bullet, and there was that ballistic missile warning in Hawaii, and it's like, and then this could really happen. This was just this was an accident, but it could happen. And then the movie ends. And it's like, okay, so thermonuclear war could happen. Yeah, I think that's been a thing that everyone's been worried about since the 50s when the Rosenberg stole the, stole the atomic bomb and gave it to the Russians. I think that was just a thing that has been not a constant fear in everyone's mind, but it's just kind of back there in the back of your head that a thermonuclear war could, in theory, break out at any point, considering such a small amount of people have their fingers on the bomb at once. I mean, there's a lot of things going on. And the other problem I have with this is, I'm not a fan of Michael Moore's style, which he has a very, what's the word I'm looking for? He has a very, personal style to his documentaries. Some might call the aesthetic, eclectic YouTuber. Some might call which is his cutting in of footage. The way he cuts in footage is overbearing, if you ask me. But that's just, it's more of an editing standpoint that, like, I just don't like the way he overlays and how he does the zoom. Multiple times on the same thing. Not a fan of that. Also, I'm not a fan of, and this is purely a Michael Moore thing, it's his signature thing, it's the fact that in his documentaries, he's as much a character as everyone else, which I think is more of a monument to his own ego than anything else. Because a good mystery movie, when you watch it, doesn't tell you the outcome. And doesn't handhold you along the way to get to your conclusion. You should be able to figure the conclusion out on your own. If it takes you multiple viewings, it takes you multiple viewings, but the pieces are all there to get you from the inciting incident to the conclusion, and you can work it out on your own, even if it takes multiple viewings. But that said, in a documentary, a good documentary, in my opinion, is one where you can watch it and you can draw your own conclusion, or you can learn something within with the lens that it's given you. Michael Moore doesn't give the audience that opportunity. He more is like an air traffic controller directing you to the conclusion you're supposed to reach, which is entirely done by his existence in the documentary. And because he's a character there, and it's not just the people talking, it's him voicing his opinion with the people. It makes it more about him and less about the topic, which I think is diminutive to whatever it is he's talking about. There's a lot of really heavy shit in this documentary. Like, they talk about, like, mostly what this is a call to action to get out and vote. And really, that's what this should have been used for. And really, what they should have done is not made it 2.5 fucking hours long. Because you can pitch me a 2.5 hour long Justice League movie, even if I know it's gonna be shit. Because at least I'm gonna get Superman out of it. You can pitch me a 2.5 hour long Avengers movie. Hell, I sat through The Equalizer 2 this year, and I sat through Peppermint. I've sat through a lot of shit this year. And I have very infrequently left the movie thinking, wow, I wish I could get that time back. Because it's not even, whatever it's trying to do isn't even well done. At least when I saw The Equalizer 2, there was a little bit of action to make it like, well, at least I got that. This movie, when I left it, I learned nothing except for Michael Moore's personal stance on this, which I probably could have got by following him on Twitter. And that's where we'll end it for today. If you haven't seen Farenheit 11/9 yet, don't waste your time seeing it. It's not worth the effort. If you really want to see it that bad, you can wait for it to come out on video on demand, because it's probably going to end up on Netflix. And I'm not saying Michael Moore's a bad documentarian. I have seen some of his that I've liked. I liked Capitalism: A Love Story. Didn't mind Bowling for Columbine. Didn't mind Fahrenheit 9/11. It's just, this one's a waste of your time. And I feel like the thing is, there are young documentary filmmakers out there who are going to see this and they're going to be like, holy shit, this is how I should do it. And this is not the way you should make a documentary. It's too self-centered when you are a character in the documentary, and not because you've been personally wronged. He's there as an activist. And a lot of it's in Flint for no fucking reason. And I'm not saying that Flint's not a crisis. Flint it was a crisis then. is still a crisis, and for the foreseeable future will still be a crisis. But nothing is being addressed here that isn't already public knowledge. There's nothing new coming out of this documentary that makes you realize that either he should have done a documentary on Flint, he should have done a documentary on school shootings, or should have done a documentary on Trump. But because all three are in this documentary, no one of them gets served with the proper respect, or that's the wrong word when we're talking about Trump, but none of them gets its due diligence in this documentary, because over 2.5 hours you have three major topics being done. And I know he did school shootings and Bowling for Columbine, but you know what? It's happening again, and it's not going away, and it's been 20 years, and yet here we are. If you're going to do another one, do another one. Don't just throw it into this one for the sake of throwing it into this one. And on that note, we'll end for today. After 15 minutes of me ranting about why I feel like I wasted my time with this documentary. Hopefully the movie for Monday is going to make me feel less agitated after seeing it. I'm going to be seeing Crazy Rich Asians. So you know what? We'll wrap it up there for today. Have a great evening.